Yesterday, we learned in the book Torah or Likuti Torah, which is really the second half of the book called Torah or, namely Maimorim that were chosen by the third Rebbe of Chabad from the thousands and thousands of Maimorim of discourses that the first Rebbe of Chabad said, his grandfather said. And this week we're learning about Parshas Emor. And we're learning about what it means holy. What does it mean that the angels say that God is holy and that God said, I will be holy among the Jewish people? The Jewish people are a holy nation, holy. What does it mean that they're holy? The commandments are called holy. God makes us holy with his commandments, and the temple is a holy temple. Land of Israel is a holy land. So what does it mean, holy? So essentially what holy means is that it reveals God. And there's two opposites involved in this, because the word holy means to be removed, something out of this world. It's a holy thing, right? You lift up a cup to take a drink. Oh, that cup is a holy cup. Ooh, what does that mean? What is it? In other words, not regular. This is something holy. What are you supposed to do with this holy thing? What is it? So something holy is out of this world. It's nothing like it. It's nothing like it whatsoever. Out of the world. So that's God. God is holy. But one second, we just finished saying that holy means to reveal God. God is revealed. How can you reveal God if God's out of the world? That doesn't sound too good. It seems that you have to just sort of destroy the world, some sort of ray or something that will just, evaporate the world. This is no. We're gonna understand what this means in a minute. We're gonna understand it, but don't be scared, because it doesn't mean to destroy the world. Exactly the opposite. It means to bring a whole new life and truth and reality in every detail of the world. So we see what the world is really about. Okay, but let's not jump ahead. So here we just finished explaining yesterday that the word holy means out of this world. Out of this world. And how is this? We say that God creates the world all the time. God creates the world all the time. Is there anything like that? Can you imagine anything like that? Even all the other religions don't have anything like that. That God is creating every detail of the world. He's creating the whole world all the time. He's creating time. He's creating space. He's creating the angels. He's above the angels. He's above the world. He's above any sort of idea of existence that you can possibly dream of. He's above the spiritual. Right? Spiritual is part of the creation. There's spiritual creation, there's physical creation, there's heaven, there's earth, there's all these different levels of creation, but it's all creation. We're talking about the creator. How the creator is totally beyond and above the world. In fact, he creates the world from nothing. So the world is really a big nothing. So the world has no effect whatsoever on God, and creating the world has no effect on God, because God is creating the world from nothing. The world still is nothing. Still is a big nothing. To us, it seems to be something, but the fact of the matter is it's nothing. In God's eyes, it's something. That's what it says in the Torah. It's something. You can't steal something from people and say, steal somebody's wallet and say your wallet is nothing. And therefore, I'm nothing. So the judge will say, okay, so then we'll just take this big whip, which is basically nothing, and give you 40 lashes on your back, which is also nothing, right? So it's nothing, So the idea of what it means that the world is nothing doesn't make any sense to us, because the world is really, and it says in the Torah that the world is something. But the fact of the matter is that the world is really nothing. God is making it from nothing. So God does not change whatsoever. We cannot create anything. We're just creations. We have absolutely no way of comprehending what it means that God exists, or that he creates us. We don't even know what the angels are. It says a person sees an angel, he goes berserk. Too much. One angel, it says, destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. We talked about this yesterday, didn't we? I don't remember. Now in America, there's this big fury. Are there UFOs? Are there not UFOs? If there are, maybe they can all, evaporate us and take us away. The angels, very scary. What are we going to use to defend ourselves against them? Well, angels are infinitely more powerful than UFOs. UFOs is a doubt if they exist or not. There's a lot of evidence. Okay. But it still is a big doubt, no actually 100% proof. Angels, 100% proof. It's written in the Torah, 100% proof that angels destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and Samson saw an angel, and Bilam saw an angel. It says Bilam saw an angel. Angel came. So angels really do exist, and they're infinitely more. It says they're 3 times the size of the universe, or a third of the universe, whatever they are. And Jews are higher than angels. That's right. Jews are higher than angels. What does that mean? I don't know. One thing it does mean is don't be afraid of UFOs. Nobody should be afraid of UFOs anyway, because what are you going to do against them, right? Even if there is such a thing. So what does usually then the UFOs, it used to be, I remember the movies, what it used to be, there was the War of the Worlds. Remember War of the Worlds? The first thing you see a UFO, you fight against it. That's the first thing. You don't take any chances, right? Anything strange, you destroy it. Well, that's not exactly the Jewish attitude toward things. If it's God's creation, there must be something good in it. Right? Could be something good in it. Anyway, what to do, I don't know exactly, because I'm not a decider of policy. But one thing I do know is that Jewish people somehow or other are connected to the creator of this whole entire business of the angels and the UFOs and the whatever it is. And God is totally above the world. Totally above the world. So one second, if God is totally above the world, maybe we should worry, because he's removed from the world. He's got nothing to do with the world. The world means nothing to him. So what does he care if there comes UFOs and destroys everything? What does he care? Okay, so then we learned not so. I forgot where we got up to. Nevertheless, we learned somewhere up to here. And the fact is that God is not so removed from the world. Here we said that he is, and here we say he's not. Not at all. God creates every single detail. He's involved in every detail. He enlivens every detail. He enlivens every angel and every bug and every atom and every quark and every interaction that there is in the world. God is the king of the world. He is very, very active. And in fact, they compare God's relationship to the world like the soul inside of the body. Im kain, if so, madamim kain, inyan hislabshus hachayus, the life that comes from God in the worlds to the soul, in the body. If so, God is very, very intimately and intricately involved in every detail of creation, every detail. Every worm that gets a wheat leaf to eat or whatever, every lion that catches a gazelle or whatever it is, that God keeps every little fish in the 20,000 leagues under the sea that gets a little worm or something like that, translucent worm or something to eat. God directed it, everything. If so, God is in the world. And this is at first glance, exactly the opposite. What we said before, the hu yisbrech, the God, Kodesh Muvdal, that he's removed from the world. Here in this paragraph proved so nicely, and he brought so many great proofs. Fantastic man, how he knows all this genius, amazing knowledge that God has nothing to do with the world. He's out of the world. The world is not compared to God. Proof. And now we're proving exactly the opposite, that God is in the world. This is the opposite of what we said before. That he's holy and removed from the world. And that how does he enliven the world? That God is not clothed in the world. God forbid. right? God is not like anything, any creation whatsoever. V'hu klal b'gadol. In fact, I'm not, says the Rebbe, I'm not going back what I said over here in this paragraph. This is a general principle in the Torah. That God grasps everything. The toughest pay, and nothing can grasp God. So says the Rebbe, the fact of the matter is that it's both true. There's a type of life which comes into the worlds, and it is divided, different levels, different aspects, something like the soul in the body. But the general life force, the existence of God, is rak ziv. It's just a ray of godliness alone. Ziv davka fashchin. It's called the ray of God's shechina. That's like up in heaven. You get a little more of this ray of God. This is called memalik holmi, and this is another name for this ray of God's presence. His shechina is called God's memalik. That's also God's speech. That's how God fills the worlds. Perish the life force which comes from Him, from God Yisbrech, Lislabish Betoches Olam, which was in the worlds. It's just a ray of godliness alone. This ray is drawn, and this is called Memalik Holmim. So God is not limited to being unlimited. So this is what's called God's word, or God's light, or God's creative force, or a ray of godliness. In Kabbalah, sometimes it's called the Kav, it's called God's beam. This is called how God fills the worlds. That's the aspect of God that articulates itself to be in every level and every body according to its needs. The upper heaven, the lower heaven. This ray of God, and this fills the worlds. This is called Almud Disgalyam Bazor. I think we got up to here. This is called the revealed worlds. The revealed worlds. All these worlds that are concealed from us, right, like heaven and things like that. The fact of the matter is, it's not concealed. From us, it's concealed, but they're not concealed. They are revealed worlds. A person, most people only get to these worlds after they die. We don't pay any attention to our body. But while a person is alive, there's some people that even, it says Olameim Ro B'Chayim, that they see heaven right now. I mean, heaven really exists right here. Heaven is not this, place in something in Chicago or somewhere. It's a dimension of reality, and it's right here also. The reason is, and this is called it's part of the revealed worlds. The reason is, on this level, Ne'amar, it says that from my flesh I can grasp God. I can actually see godliness. Echazem is to see. It's Aramaic. It's as though you see with a revealed way. You can actually see this level of godliness. How can you see it? Look at an animal, right? Look at an animal. I'll give an example. But just, you can look at an animal, look at a crow, look at a cat, how sophisticated they are, right? How did they learn this stuff? Where did it come from? Look at the world, how the world moves, how the planets, how they move, the sun, the moon, the winds. Amazing. On one end, you can say, it's just nature, that's the way it evolved. Took 20, 100 billion, trillion years to the trillionth power or something like that. The world has just been sort of floating around. And there's all sorts of permutations, just pop. This is one of the, how do you say, the permutations of reality that came out is this world. Happened to be. Maybe there's other worlds. There's, what do they call it? What do they call them? The corresponding worlds. There's a better word for it. Anyway, there's the worlds that are, maybe there's billions of worlds, and ours is just one of them. And these spaceships, they come from another dimension, a corresponding dimension, and that could be maybe all these, right? And just, there's no creator. It just sort of popped up. That's all. I've just started popped up. Could be. You're right. It could be. Yeah, but it also could be not. It could be not. In the end, having a connection with God is a matter of faith, because we don't see God. You can explain anything you want to, logically. Everything you explain logically. So you don't have to have any belief. Let's take an example. I mean, it's a terrible example, but just popped into my mind. Some people don't want to believe anything. Take an example. Stalin, may his name be blotted out forever. Yamach Shamo. Anybody that he didn't trust anybody. He didn't have any belief in anything, in anyone, nothing whatsoever. For sure, not in God, but in nothing whatsoever. He wanted to control everything in the future. So anybody who he even vaguely suspected of anything, that not that it could be people that were faithful to him now, but people even in the future, he didn't want to believe in anything. He left nothing up to being out of his control. So he killed people. They say that he killed about 50 million people. He killed actively like 20 million people. And there's another 30 million people he sent to these gulags. Just anybody who he didn't want to have any uncertainty, no uncertainty whatsoever. So he just got rid of it by killing everybody. And it worked. He worked. It ruled for how long did he rule for? He ruled for like 30, 40 years, something like that. Over in 1920, 1950, 30 years, something like that he ruled. Nobody. So we can live our life that way also. Anything that is a little bit uncertain, we want nothing to do with it. So you live a life of anxiety and misery, but at least you're sort of locked in your room. Well, the fact of the matter is it's really not so. The fact is that God is creating everything. He really is creating everything, but it takes faith. It takes belief to get attached to this. And then there's belief, then that opens up a whole Pandora's box of beliefs. You got to believe in that. Maybe you believe in this. There's all these other religions and all these other things. Okay, let's get to the fact. The Rebbe is trying to give us the fact. If you want to believe that God is enlivening everything in the world, you can find plenty of evidence. This, you can see that God is creating the world. You can see it. How? Just like from my flesh. We can see, you can see that you have a soul, that enlivens the flesh of your body. Should be stalkus and nefesh, that if the soul goes out of the body, azai then nasa goof peger, the body becomes a corpse, ke'evan, like a stone, kenira balayla. We can see an example of this in the nighttime. Be'esa shina, when a person sleeps, sheneshama mistalek me'aguf, the soul goes away from the body. Nishar kista dechayusa, there's a little tiny bit of life, a sliver of life. Hare, behold, shina echad mi samach mimav misa. It says that sleep is like 1/60th of death. Right? To be or not to be, to sleep, perchance to dream. Sleep is 1/60th of death. So you can see that when you go to sleep, that you're like your soul goes away, like a little bit dead. And therefore, we bless every morning, when you stand up from your sleep. Thank you, God. Blessed are you that you have returned souls to dead bodies. Huh? Because every morning, life is sort of brand new every day. And we are made into a new creation. Person's brand new. A lot of people go to sleep, they don't wake up. We go to sleep, we wake up. I mean, obviously, we're giving this class, right? So if you're listening to this, it's a good sign you're probably alive. If you're alive, it's a big miracle, because there's a lot of people that aren't alive, but we take it for granted. So either you can say this life is something that just, like we said before, it's just like the batteries that come along with the toy. Right? You get free batteries, and then when they run out, that's it. Or you can say it's a gift from God. We choose the second. Either one is equally, I want to say, viable. It's equally viable. But then you start thinking about it, it sort of doesn't really make that much sense that we just sort of popped up And the guy, could you say, it could be, it could be we just sort of popped up and we just evolved from, my mother and father just evolved me or something. But you can say it. Anyway, this life force, which is this, if you want to, you can ignore it, you can take it for granted. But if you want to, you can look into it and you can take everything for granted. You could be like Stalin and not, just kill everything around you and everything of this, not in physically, but in your mind. Nothing really means anything, right? Nothing really matters, Hariyaf even though she'ein anu roim, that we don't see with our physical eyes the soul, what it is, but nevertheless, nodav and nirgash, we can feel shanefes mislabish guf, that the soul is in the body. Shari nira lana, we can see pilotov, we can see how it affects the body. The body lives from it. Shari mitzaratzmo, on its own, the body is like a stone. Mistalika nefesh, when the soul goes away. If so, the soul is like a revelation of something spiritual, at least in the body. Shinira lana, we can see slabshus and nefesh baguf, we can see the soul in the body. Afal even though she'ein mahus musag, we don't know what it is. Kach mamish also echzel lokai. Also, we can start to realize that maybe the whole entire world is like one big body, and God is enlivening it. Shari anu roim, we can see on our eyes what seems in the world, who guf gadol. The world is like one big body. Chai, it's alive. All the things in the world have to have something that enlivens them. Commotion noda lana, that we see hanefesh al yedei pulas, by means of the soul. A person does not enliven himself. And beguf, or commotion aroim, like we can see the life in this physical world. Kamokain, also there's also creations in the upper worlds. Isaiah saw angels, Ezekiel saw angels. They're angels, like I said before. Right? We see in the Torah that angels appeared angels appeared to Abraham, angels appeared to Hagar, angels. Angel appears to Lot. So there's angels. There's some of them that even God Himself appears to. God, visions of God. God came. So we see Maaseh B'Yoser says Hachayos Mahave Osam. If so, there's upper worlds also, and we can understand that if these upper worlds really exist, there's a life force which enlivens them. And people talk about going to heaven and heaven, etc. The whole thing of going to heaven, after a person dies, he goes to heaven, as that's just a little bit clearer vision of this life force that enlivens the world. You have a little less doubts that there's God. There's no, selfish impulses up there in heaven. I mean, I can't really speak from experience, but that's what it says in the books. That's what it says. From my flesh, I grasp God. From my flesh, just like my flesh, my body, ani margish, I can feel and see, so to speak, the effects of the soul that God gave me. Also, I can start to see the life force which is in the what do you think the next word is? World. Come on. There it goes. One minute. Yes. Also, I can see Elokah, godliness. Skip this word. He and this level of godliness we can see in the world. What we have to use our mind. We have to use our, faith. But nevertheless, this is what's called the enclothing of Achayus Mamalikolmim, how God fills the world. This is the other aspect of God, which is fills the world. So that aspect of God, which is above the world, above creation, not part of the creation, that creates everything, It is impossible. That's called Soviv Kolmim, how God surrounds the world. And that aspect of God which enlivens everything, that goes into the worlds, that's like the soul filling the body. It's also in three different levels before. Like we said before, head, body, and legs. Gan Eden Elyon, the upper Gan Eden Tachton, the lower Gan Eden, and Olam Hazeh in this physical world. Therefore, it's called filling all the worlds. That's called the revealed worlds. In other words, they're revealed either when a person is alive after he dies. Okay, we have not yet talked about the Torah or the commandments or the Jewish people. We're just talking about the Creator. Now, this is the Creator that everyone in the world is supposed to believe in because he's creating us and he's enlivening us. This is it. There's no other Creator. There's no other force, if you want to call it, that we should believe in. We should believe only in the Creator. And this Creator, we're just learning now, he's got two aspects. One of the aspects is that he enlivens us, and the other is that he creates us. That's in general. Let's have a look. But this level that comes down into what's called Mamali Kolmim, this is only a ray of God. Of a who, but God himself, that this ray of God, right? How does the Torah say that God spoke and created the world? So this whole world is coming from God's speech. What about God himself, the speaker? God himself, who Kodesh removed, those totally removed from any possibility of comprehension or understanding, or what do you want to call it, extrapolation from the world. She'enu yisparech, she'enu mislabish, God is not clothed in any way in the world. So you can look at all the angels and everything. That's why the angels are going berserk. The angels are saying, holy, 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 holy. They have absolutely no idea what God is. They just know that God is. They know that they're not like us. We think we're being kept alive by Darwin or somebody. The angels are sure. By the way, Darwin himself wasn't, it was just a theory. It wasn't, not to be taken that seriously. Okay, in any case, we can make a mistake and think that there's no God. We just sort of popped up and we came from amoebas or something. You know the joke? I thought this, everybody knows the joke, but I'll tell you the joke anyway. No, everybody will know it. A child comes up to his mother and says, Mommy, where do human beings come from? So she said, God created us. We're creations of God. She said, but I asked Daddy. Daddy said we came from monkeys. She said, well, your father is right, but he's talking about his side of the family. I'm talking about my side of it. Okay. So the fact of the matter is that God himself, he is totally separate. He is not anything to do with the worlds whatsoever. And we can just say very simply that God enlivens us. That's a big mystery that we can sort of partake in because we don't know really where our soul comes from, right? We don't know where, but on the other hand, that God creates us. Who says that there's a creator? We can do very fine without having a creator, right? Without a creator. If you think about it, it really sort of makes sense because nothing creates itself. But we say, listen, I exist because everything always exists. That was a Greek philosophy. Everything always existed in some form. Existence just always is. So there's no necessity to say that something is creating me, but there is certainly a necessity to say something is enlivening me. Right? Something is enlivening. Right? You can say it. Even though the countries that were the big murderers, the communists and what was the guy's name? Mao Zedong. They say he killed 100 million people. I don't know how many people he killed. But the people that kill other people, life is not worth anything to them anyway. Life is also not a mystery to these people. I don't know what his mystery is to murder. I don't know, but but generally speaking, life is a mystery. It's a revealed mystery. It's a mystery. Where do we come from? Where does the life come from? But our existence is not such a big mystery. We can get along without thinking about it. Says the Rebbe, because that's the aspect of God which is totally beyond and above any sort of comprehension. The creator. There's nothing in this world that creates anything else. There's no example of creation in this world. We don't see it. Life and death we see, right? There's things that are dead, some things that are alive. But creation, we don't see anything creating anything more. So this is like really far out. We say that, but that's the God of the Jews. God of the Jews, he not only enlivens everything, which we can sort of come to logically, that's called filling the worlds, but God also creates all of the worlds. He creates all being. That's called Soviv calling. God surrounds the worlds. In other words, he surrounds, instead of worlds, let's say definition. He surrounds all definition. He's above all possibility of defining. God cannot be defined, this aspect of God. And also the fact is that this life which comes from God to live in the worlds, Iker Chayos, it's also not in the worlds at all. Also not by means of enclothing. This is so calming. That the fact that we're being kept alive, that the aspect of God which is inside of us, this basically is also totally incomprehensible. A little bit comes into us, so we can sort of, deal with it. But the fact is, this also comes from God. There's only one God. There's only one God. And God is totally incomprehensible. Both the aspect of God that's inside of us and the aspect of God that's outside of us. The God is infinitely close to us and infinitely distant from us. There's only one God. So really this aspect of life, which comes inside of us, just a very, very small sliver of life which comes inside of us. And when people go to heaven, they feel much more of this life, but it still is very removed from us. Even the Mamali call me. That's what we said before. That the life force, that God enlivens the worlds. It is not kedimion. It is not like a soul which enlivens the body. Why? Because God mechayosam. God enlivens the worlds, not only creates them from afar, from distant, so to speak, but also God enlivens them, that God is not inside of them, also in a way of soviv, surrounding above them. There's a little tiny bit of life that comes into us, the little tiny bit of awareness that we can have of God, right? This is a little tiny bit of how God makes himself accessible to us. That's what we call Mamali Kalmin. But really that whole thing also comes from Soviet Kalmin. It also is totally incomprehensible. Or in simple English, everything is a miracle. Or this ray of godliness, which is drawn in order to enliven the worlds, this is just a little tiny ray, of a picture, of a glimmer, of a whatever, of godliness that comes out from Soviv Kolomim, that comes from this aspect of God which surrounds the worlds. And this is called Ziva Shechina. Like we said before, it's called the ray of God's presence. And therefore, Ein Shaykh Bo, it's not possible any change in God whatsoever. Al Yadei Bria, by means of the creation. Velokamo and Neshama, and it is not really like the soul that is affected from the body. Lefi, because Shemahutz Atzmo, because the soul is really clothed in the body. But God is not clothed in the world. Just a little ray of an example, whatever, of God. But move on so we can understand. This aspect of God, which is totally beyond and above any sort of world or comprehension or spirit, and Shaykh is Chalkos, it cannot be divided up, head and foot, above, below. It's not in the worlds. That's what it says. Niskav Shemol Vado. We say God's name is elevated above the world. Hodu al Eretz Shemayim, just as glory is on the heavens and the earth. Perish Sharak Ziv Vahud, only a ray or a shine of godliness is not only godliness, the name, which the name of God is also a ray of a shine of godliness, is in heavens and the earth to enliven them, umachalik, and to divide them into all these divisions of up and down and plant, animal, mineral, human. But God's essence name, this is holy and removed and high from us. So the Rebbe here wants to give us a little bit of an idea of how incredibly incomprehensible God is. In fact, to say that God is incomprehensible is a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a, how do you want to call it, an embarrassment. What is that, an embarrassment? It's belittling God. That God is so great, he's incomprehensible, as though you thought that he was comprehensible, right? The Rebbe brings in the Tanya, saying like, high mathematics is so deep. I went to university. High mathematics is so deep. I brought with me a big bag, huge bag, and a big ladder. And I got up stood on the top of the ladder. It was high mathematics, right? I stood up on the ladder in the lecture room, the highest you can get. And I took this big bag and I tried to grab these ideas of high mathematics. I did not grab anything. And that's insane. That's the most stupid statement to make. That's how do you say, embarrassing mathematics. You think you can grab it in a bag. Well, infinitely more so is saying that God is so great, I can't understand him. Your mind is less of a vessel to grasp God than a big bag is to grab mathematics. So it says, therefore, God in his essence is totally removed from us. Now, just because we're going to finish this soon, but don't get the wrong idea from this whole thing. Don't think that God is far away. It means that he's inaccessible. Like we said before, the fact that God is infinite means that he's infinite in all aspects. He's not limited in any way. So he's not limited to be far away also. God's infiniteness is creating us, me and you, and God cares about us. God personally himself, that's above the angels, he cares about me and you, Jew, non-Jew, animals, trees, plants, but animals and trees are not made in God's image. Human beings are made in God's image. And that's one of the things the Jewish people are chosen for, to tell the non-Jews how much God loves them and that they are created in God's image and that God is infinitely close to them. But that does not in any way minimize the fact that God is infinitely far and incomprehensible, even from the angels. Like it says, there's no comparison to you, God. It is impossible to have any world or any life come from God in a way of an orderly fashion. Ilu v'Allah, cause and effect. In Ilu v'Allah, this idea of cause and effect, this is like from intellect comes an emotion in the heart, right? A person understands something, right? The UFOs are attacking. Really, there's really such a thing? Oh, I gotta be scared, right? Says, no, I saw a UFO and he was really good. He gave me a big blessing. He healed my wife. Oh, so they're really good. So I love them. From the ideas you have in your mind, that gives birth to intellect. That's what's called cause and effect. From your emotions come thoughts, and from the thoughts, etc. Which is, so the ideas in your mind, that's grasped in your emotions, which is not the case. God surrounds all the worlds, and he is not grasped in the worlds at all. God is not like an effect that a result can understand a little bit where he comes from. So God is creating us all the time, infinitely close to us, because he's creating us from nothing all the time. And this is totally incomprehensible. Like I said, to say incomprehensible is like an insult. It's like coming to a professor in mathematics and say, your class was so amazing. I had this big bag and I didn't grab one idea. That's that's an insult to the professor. Same thing with God, saying that God is so great, I can't understand him. It's a totally different type of reality than our reality. Our reality is like 1 billion times watered down. On this it says, that's what it says, that God's name is elevated alone. Therefore, it says, I am God, I never changed. That God is before the world. We have to know who we're praying to when we pray. Yes, God is infinite, close to us, but don't get too friendly. Don't think you can do it. God is infinitely infinite, no possible way of understanding. That's why he's called the Almighty. That's what it says. Elokim Chaim Melech Olam. This same God is totally above. He's creating me and you. What we remember tomorrow, we'll get up to here. That's what it says. Elokim Chaim Melech Olam. Now we're going to get to this idea of being holy. We did not get yet to the Torah and the commandments, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Let's go. 1 minute. 1 minute.